welcome to you. Welcome to all three of you, to Rose, Kelvin and Lisa, as we enter this remarkable little passage of Transfiguration. What does it mean? Kelvin, do you have a little bit of background for us?
Well, it comes at a very strategic point in Luke's gospel. Jesus is heading towards Jerusalem, and the pace seems to be picking up. Immediately before this passage, there are some of the very famous miracles, the Gerasene demoniac and the healing of Jairus' daughter and the woman with the flow of blood, and the sermon on the plain, and all of these things are immediately close by. And it seems like the whole pace of Jesus's life is picking up, and the King himself is taking notice of Jesus, and the disciples. They've made Peter's made his great declaration of faith, and they've had the most astoundingly successful ministry going through and healing people and casting out demons and goodness knows what, and miracles happening. But the whole tenor of this passage around the Transfiguration is one of confusion. That nobody gets Jesus, absolutely nobody gets Jesus, because they don't get what's at the heart of his ministry. And it's here in the Transfiguration, where the Transfiguration, it reads like a resurrection story. And in fact, some scholars have explained it away by saying that it is a misplaced resurrection story. It's got all those features. This is what Jesus will be like when he's resurrected. And I think that it is actually a resurrection story before Jesus's crucifixion. And it's Luke's way of trying to get through to his thick disciples, amongst whom I am one, that resurrection and death are absolutely intricately intertwined, so that you cannot have one without the other. And this is what the disciples simply don't get. That Peter's great statement on the mountain, let's make three little chapels up here, one for me, one, and I'll get the carpet in, and we'll talk about where the altar is going to be replaced, all of that stuff, because he thinks that this apex experience happens sort of as a thing in its own right. But what are they talking about? Elijah and Moses and Jesus. They're talking about his death. And death and resurrection are here intricately intertwined.
Well, that takes us into the heart of some of the themes of Lent and Holy Week coming up, as it should. Rose, for you, where does this Transfiguration epic take you?
For me, I've always been mildly jealous of people when they talk about mountaintop experiences. But the challenge for me is to encounter God in everyday experiences. It's, if you wait for a mountaintop experience, you could miss some encounters with God, with like talking with people, looking at creation, all the places where we find God. If you sit waiting for that big hello, here I am thing, you're in danger of missing out on the lovely little beautiful blessings that we get every day.
So you find there a challenge, almost the reciprocal, that you're looking for God and finding God in the everyday. Lisa, for you, Transfiguration, some challenge in amongst that?
I find lots of strange things about this passage. I mean, for example, how did they know it was Elijah and Moses? Were they wearing T-shirts or name badges? Were they introduced? And I also sat like Calvin with the, why now? There's a staged element to this. And I felt too that this was something that was staged for the benefit of the disciples. And again, I looked at context, all the exciting things, for the fishermen, a king is taking interest in what they're doing and what's happening. And I think that this event is preparing them for the hard time ahead. So it says later on in the passage that Jesus' face was set towards Jerusalem. And I think there will be a time when all seems lost, and he's giving them something to hang on to. And I often wonder about what happened on the Friday night and the Saturday for the disciples. And I wonder if amongst all the despair and sense of loss, whether Peter and John were saying, but remember that thing that happened? So it is preparing them, it's giving them an indication of something to come.
So no matter what happens here, they still seem to be set in not getting it right, because things turn to custard as soon as they go down from the mountaintop, don't they? Rose, you've anchored the Transfiguration in a sense in the everyday, because that's very important to you. Do we still get it wrong?
All the time, absolutely. Because a wee bit like Peter and the rest of them, they're so busy, you know, what do we do, Lord? Look, can we do this? Like Kelvin said, can we build that? Can we build that? And it's all that talk, and it's not actually stopping and looking at what you're seeing and giving yourself some silence to take it in, or listen to what Jesus is saying. They're too busy, oh, you know, let's do this, let's do that. And it's, yeah.
So do you find good news when given that we've got these feet of clay, like the disciples?
Yeah, well, yeah, because even when we do that, even when we go off on our wee tangents, God is still there, and you've just got to stop and be silent. I think I have to read this bit, but in the message, it says, as they found themselves buried in the cloud, they became deeply aware of God. And that kind of talks to me about, no matter how deeply enmeshed you are in the bad things of the world, and heaven only knows it's going on all around us now, stop and look for God, and there you find him.
Yes. Kelvin, stop, look for God. Good news?
Well, for me, I guess it's this intricate intermingling of death and life, which is both good news and bad news. The best definition of sin I ever heard was one, from decades ago, is that sin is whatever stands between me and God. And God is all around me. And what stops me seeing God? Well, it's me. I stand between me and God. And God, that's why I have to go. Which sounds an extraordinarily challenging and difficult and impossible thing. But this passage, what it tells me is that what lies beyond that death. I'm 70 in a couple of weeks' time, and all sorts of symbolic import to that number, and contemplating my own mortality. And when I think of death, what waits is what we read in this passage. It's Christ in glory. It's the old wise ones from centuries ago who will answer all of those questions that I've been itching to know for decades and decades and decades. So this passage is at once terrifying and at the same time fills me with the most boundless optimism and hope of what lies ahead of us.
Lisa, I've often sensed that you like to find good news in passages, and I resonate.
Interesting how we can all take the same passage and read quite different good news in it, because for me the good news was about how God prepares the ground. So the disciples completely misunderstand what's happening here. They think Elijah and Moses have come down for good. This is the start of, amazing things. It is the start of amazing things, but they're not there for good. And what's coming ahead is hard. It is amazing, but hard. And I think God does the same thing for us. I think he prepares the ground for us. And we will often misunderstand how he's doing that. But when we look back, we can see how he has provided us with exactly what we needed. at the time, and he will provide us, he will provision us, he will give us the signs, and we're blessed by that.
So, as I always like to say, so what? We're in this incredibly troubled world, as Rose hinted a few minutes ago, and the signs that we can come through. But let's incarnate them a little. Lisa, I'll come back to you as we look forward in our own communities. So what is this message?
I think where I went with this was that signs are ephemeral and hard to interpret. And as human beings, we never have enough information about what the signs mean. And we try to pin them down and say, they mean this. But actually, God might have a completely different purpose for something in provisioning our lives. And so for me, the so what was, how might we look back and see how God provided for us with the right person, the right book, the right scripture, the right memory, whatever it was that we needed at the time. So let's look back at that. But also there's a looking forward, which is, how is God preparing the ground for you now?
Rose, resonate for you? So what in your life and work?
Yeah, those people that know me know that God talks to me through music. And all the time I've been thinking about this. A song called I Can Only Imagine by Mercy Me has been coming into my head. And if I may just share that a little bit with you. The message talks about Peter, John, James seeing Christ in his glory. So, surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? I'm not singing, by the way. Or in awe of you be still. Will I stand in your presence, or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. And this, Peter blurting out all of those things, I'd like to think that when my time comes, I can just be quiet and listen to Jesus, because I know he probably helped Dave Dobbin write this song, but he's going to say, welcome home. I see a place for you. And that's what this says to me. Yeah.
Indeed. And I love that image. And the other one that I love is so much in the world and in our lives is mysterious. And I have the sense sometimes of coming through to this place called death, to this light that the resurrection reveals and the transfiguration foreshadows, and then going, was that what it was about?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not about me. Kelvin, can you give us a bit of a so what as we look around?
I really resonated with what Lisa said about this, the preparation and the right person, the right book, the right picture, the right everything comes up, and only in retrospect you look back and say, what a gift that was at this time. But this passage speaks to that, and speaks to the sense that our lives are much bigger than we ever imagine they will be, and that the purposes of God working through them have got this eternal component to them, that we are being formed for astonishing things, and this intricate interweaving of life and death. It's terrifying and it's glorious, and
And this scene captures beautifully the terror and the glory and the humanness of those who are up there on the mountaintop and still manage to get it so wrong. Rose, Kelvin, Lisa, thanks for being with us and breaking open this remarkable scene, this rather strange scene in Luke's handling, and as we journey through the mysteries of Lent. Thanks for being on board.